I've been around the world many times, but I have never, ever seen a place like Mount Athos, where we spent a couple of weeks this year. It hasn't changed in 1,000 years.
In an age overwhelmed by noise and constant distraction, there exists a place almost untouched by time, a sanctuary shaped by silence and prayer.
We're going to take you to a place outside our world. It's not Mars or Venus, but it might as well be. It's a remote peninsula in northern Greece that millions believe to be the most sacred spot on Earth. It's called Mount Athos.
Far from fame, cameras, and social media, Mount Athos preserves an ancient rhythm of life centered entirely on the pursuit of God. Here, stillness is not empty, but alive with meaning. Before filming a story of resurrection, Hollywood icon Mel Gibson made a quiet pilgrimage to this hidden world. What drew him there, and what did this sacred mountain reveal about faith, humility, and the longing of the human soul? The mystery of Mount Athos. Mount Athos is more than a mountain. It is a world apart where silence speaks louder than words. Hidden on a peninsula in northern Greece, it preserves a centuries-old way of life that resists modern noise, fame, and distraction. Unshaped by tourism or social media, Athos remains a sacred space where men dedicate themselves entirely to prayer, solitude, and detachment from the world. One of its most striking features is the exclusion of women, a tradition upheld for over 1,000 years. This is not meant as rejection, but as consecration. The land is regarded as a spiritual garden blessed by the Virgin Mary, carefully protected through silence and discipline. There are no parties, no cameras, no public spectacle, only lives turned fully toward God. Within its 20 active monasteries, time follows an ancient rhythm. Men who have left behind careers, wealth, and even their former names rise before dawn for prayers unchanged for centuries. While the world outside races forward, Athos kneels in stillness. These lives stand in quiet opposition to a culture obsessed with visibility and self-promotion. The monks embody Christ's words, "Whoever does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple." What sounds metaphorical elsewhere is lived literally here. Their refusal to modernize is not weakness, but strength, a reminder that progress does not always mean abandoning depth. Rather than seeking attention, the monks disappear from view, not escaping the world, but holding it up through prayer. Their silence is not absence, but presence, an unseen intercession even Hollywood could not ignore. Before directing The Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson made a quiet pilgrimage to Athos, seeking something real beyond fame. Years later, he returned, not as a celebrity, but as a seeker. For someone who reached the heights of recognition, the mountain offered a different summit, one that confronts the soul. Athos does not entertain, it convicts. Its silence exposes the clutter of the heart and reveals how deeply the soul longs for stillness. This is the mountain's mystery, hidden from the world, yet quietly sustaining it through prayer. As we start to understand what draws people like Mel Gibson here, the story leads back through time to the ancient roots that shaped this sacred land and its enduring spiritual legacy. Ancient roots and enduring tradition. Mount Athos's story stretches back not just centuries, but millennia, intertwining myth, history, and faith. In ancient Greek texts as early as the 5th century BC, Athos appears first as a place of legend, more than prayer. Tales of the god Poseidon, throwing mountains in divine battles, shaped early understanding of the land. This heritage of mythical grandeur created a mysterious aura that would later blend with a powerful spiritual calling. As Christianity spread through the region, Athos transformed from a battleground of gods to a sanctuary of saints. By the 4th century AD, men who felt called to deeper spiritual discipline left the cities in search of solitude and preparation for communion with God. These early Christian ascetics, inspired by Christ's own withdrawal into the wilderness, found refuge in caves and forests that became shifting corridors of worship. On this mountain, the wilderness itself seemed alive with scripture. The wind carried echoes of prayer. Even nature became part of the sacred life. Instead of building empires or cities, these men emptied themselves. Their goal was not earthly power, but surrender, a stripping away of all distractions to reveal the divine. This formation shaped Athos not as a political center, but as a spiritual stronghold. The year 963 AD marked a spiritual turning point with the founding of the great Lavra monastery by Saint Athanasius the Athonite, a mystic and monk whose fervor ignited an unquenchable fire of devotion. From this single seed grew a network of monasteries, each a fortress of prayer built by commitment rather than ambition. These communities became protected not just spiritually, but politically, as Byzantine emperors, kings, and church leaders recognized the mountain's holiness and offered gifts, armies, and funds. Turmoil, the likes of which plagues, wars, and changes in empire came, but Mount Athos still existed. Its existence was not a matter of stone fortifications, but rather the men who preferred fasting to feasting and faith to fear. The monastic population at its peak was more than 20,000 souls. Even today, the number is only around 1,000, but still, the spiritual fire is there. They are the ones who bear the prayer of ages in a world that has mostly forgotten how to kneel. Inside the ancient monasteries are the remnants of a holy past, icons, hand-copied gospels, and even the bones of saints preserved, not as curiosities, but with reverence. These artifacts bear witness that sanctity is not merely an abstraction, it is a life that has been lived and a cross that has been borne. The monks are neither saints in human perfection nor public figures. They are sinners saved by grace, struggling with their own battles in the quietness. Visitors frequently comment that this silence is nearly intolerable. It is not only around them, but also within them. The external noise is completely removed by the silence, and what is left is the raw truth of one's spiritual poverty. Here, silence is the opposite of emptiness. It is a deep listening invitation, a listening to God's still, small voice. And each lowly chant, perhaps most often, "Lord have mercy," is a surrendering, humbling, and desperate cry. This venerable custom is a resounding and unyielding challenge to a society that lives for glory, destruction of all sorts, and self-promotion. Mount Athos is not a faith museum, but rather a continuous testimony rooted in eternity. And as contemporary culture runs after the main thing, probably this mountain points out very well what is really lost when the fear of God disappears. The rigorous discipline of the monks' daily lives reveals how this sacred work continues, turning prayer and fasting into spiritual warfare that guards the mountain's legacy. The monastic life and spiritual discipline. Life on Mount Athos is marked by a disciplined rhythm where every moment is an opportunity for prayer and surrender. Monks rise long before dawn, often at 3 o'clock in the morning, to begin liturgies that have remained unchanged for centuries. Their chants, untrained yet powerful, echo through stone chapels, shunning modern instruments or performance. The simplicity of this worship is profound, a continual call to mercy, reflecting raw humanity and reliance on grace. Their days are shaped by fasting, prayer, and manual labor, with fasting serving as a key form of spiritual resistance. It is not legalism or self-harm, but an act of freedom from craving, control, and the constant hunger of the flesh. By denying the body, monks declare that their spirit must lead, carving out space for God amid the noise of desire. This deliberate self-denial is a strike against darkness as much as a personal discipline. Every prayer is a sword in a hidden battle. The monks fight principalities and spiritual forces unseen by the outside world. Their silence is not withdrawal, but fierce intercession, a steadfast resistance to evil that most never witness. The warfare they engage in is one of souls, an unseen struggle that carries immense weight for the world beyond the mountain. Many monks live lives of utter anonymity. There are no pulpits or platforms here, no social media stars or public figures. A monk's greatest honor may be to light candles before dawn, preparing the chapel without recognition. Their unseen faithfulness often shines brighter in spiritual realms than any popular sermon or public acclaim. This humility is not weakness, but a warrior's strength. The impact of these prayers extends far beyond the monastery walls. According to ancient Orthodox wisdom, the prayers of Mount Athos sustain far more than the monks themselves. They uphold a world on the brink. There is a saying that if the prayers at Athos ever ceased, the world would end. Whether poetic or prophetic, this reflects the profound spiritual role the mountain plays. Monks lift their hands for the sick, the addicted, the lost, strangers whose names they may never know. Their holy anonymity challenges the modern obsession with recognition and credit. In a culture fixated on going viral, Athos teaches disappearance, the art of vanishing so completely into Christ that nothing remains but Him. This hidden, holy struggle invites us to reconsider what true power and influence mean. The mountain's call is not to loud declarations or large crowds, but to quiet surrender and faithful prayer. For seekers like Mel Gibson, it offers a place to find mercy and silence amid a life overwhelmed by noise and spectacle. The silence of Athos flows like a river through the mountain's history, its traditions, and the lives of those who have chosen to answer a call louder than any public acclaim. Athos as a refuge from modernity. Mount Athos stands as a remarkable refuge amid a world dominated by noise, distraction, and constant reinvention. While society races forward, addicted to instant updates, viral fame, and relentless connectivity, Athos remains stubbornly unchanged. It does not seek to be relevant by today's standards, but instead holds tightly to an ancient way of life that many see as out of step with the modern age. This refusal to adapt is paradoxically its greatest strength, offering a sanctuary for those longing to escape the chaos. The monasteries on Athos preserve rhythms that ignore corporate schedules and streaming feeds. Here, time flows according to liturgical hours and the steady cadence of prayer. The monks are not motivated by social approval or public recognition. Instead, they live hidden lives dedicated to steadfast devotion. Their silence is intentional, a shield against the shallow distractions that so often fill modern life. This quiet resistance serves as a rebuke to a culture obsessed with being heard and seen. Living without phones, selfies, or social media, Athos challenges the idea that visibility equals value. Its inhabitants choose anonymity and surrender to self-promotion. The mountain does not offer entertainment or spectacle, but something far rarer: presence. In a world that demands constant output and curated images, Athos invites us to disappear into the divine. It is a place where the noise fades, and what remains is raw and real. This unwavering conservation is not just a matter of habit, but also the main reason why the spirit can take shelter there. A great number of people visit Athos looking for recovery from their spiritual burnout and from the noise of existence. The mountain's quietness might seem nearly unbearable because it reveals the innermost feelings and dissolves all outer layers. However, it is in this intense silence that metamorphosis takes place. Thus, a person is enabled to face their true self and hear the still, small voice. This drastic becomes an antidote to the worldwide culture of continual movement and consumption. The struggle of Athos against changes also brings to the fore the cultural tension between the search for the timeless truth and the requirement of the short-lived trends. While the whole world is ceaselessly self-inventing, Athos is still retaining its identity, resonating with the faith of innumerable generations that did not compromise. This stability is not a longing for the past, but a restoration, a conscious return to the part of the world that it has largely forgotten. It presents a counter-narrative to the broken and speedy lives that many still lead today. The resistance is inscribed in the very walls of the monastery. They preserve the lives of the saints, the original icons, and the oldest manuscripts not as historical, but as miraculously living evidences of the faith that has been slipping from one generation to the next through centuries. The hush that envelops these areas embodies the very prayers that have been uttered and the very battles that have been fought in the invisible spiritual battle. Here, the past and the present come together in a perpetual act of worship and surrender that is beyond time. This non-conformity, which is very much connected to faithfulness and discipline, generates a special atmosphere. Mount Athos is a lighthouse for the seekers who have become weary of the ever-changing trends and want something eternal and unshakable. Often, the experience for visitors and especially pilgrims is that they leave different human beings, having seen a place where the divine light of holiness is still very much alive despite the general decline of many religious practices in modern times. The question of what happens when the world gets quieter and silence starts to sin is indeed very profound. Are we not being called to the same refuge? The resonance of Athos's ancient stillness naturally bends toward personal stories of longing and search, where even a Hollywood icon found himself drawn amid a life weighed down by fame and turmoil. Mel Gibson's Pilgrimage and Search. Mel Gibson's pilgrimage to Mount Athos. Before directing, The Passion of the Christ was a quiet, deeply personal journey far removed from celebrity and spectacle. Without publicity or applause, he sought something real, a mercy often drowned out by life's noise. In a place that rejects fame and demands silence, Gibson's visit reveals a striking truth. Even those at the peak of success can be spiritually starved for stillness. His journey was not about approval, but confrontation. Athos challenged him with radical quiet and prayer, a silence that does not entertain but exposes the inner clutter we often avoid. For someone immersed in the spotlight, this encounter forced a reckoning with deeper realities. Gibson later returned, not as a filmmaker, but as a seeker, drawn again by the mountain's sacred call. The pilgrimage highlights a universal hunger for something beyond applause and achievement, a desire to be seen by heaven rather than crowds. It shows how noise, even when wrapped in success, can distance the heart from what truly sustains it. Athos stands as a reminder that no matter how far one climbs in the world, a higher summit awaits where silence meets the spirit. Gibson's retreat also exposes the sharp contrast between celebrity culture and monastic life. On Athos, anonymity is prized, and prayer is the central work. Faith here is not self-expression, but surrender. The mountain does not seek attention. It simply invites humility and openness, offering a countercultural vision of meaning. Rather than an escape, Athos becomes a place of encounter, a meeting with truths fame cannot touch. Gibson's silent search mirrors that of countless others drawn not by recognition, but by the longing for divine presence. His experience suggests that true strength comes not from the spotlight, but from surrender. Ultimately, his pilgrimage bridges two worlds, public acclaim and hidden faith. It challenges us to slow down, examine what we chase, and rediscover the peace found only when the noise fades and the soul is allowed to listen. In this space between fame and faith, between shouting and silence, lies the heart of Mount Athos, a place that continues to whisper ancient truths in a modern world desperate to listen. The power of silence and prayer. Today, Mount Athos holds a profound place not only in the history of faith, but in the spiritual reality of the world today. Hidden from public view, its monks serve as unseen guardians in an age ruled by noise and distraction. Their ceaseless prayers, offered far from headlines and social media, remind us that faith often works quietly behind the scenes. The strength of Athos lies in humble persistence. Rising before dawn, monks chant ancient prayers, often repeating the simple cry, "Lord, have mercy." These words carry weight not through eloquence, but through sincerity and surrender. In a culture shaped by performance and speed, This form of prayer offers a powerful contrast. Fasting on Mount Athos is a different spiritual practice. It is not considered a punishment, but rather a way to set one free. Monasteries are places where monks practice disciplines such as fasting and therefore have a daily life like the one in the Bible. Their struggle is not visible, but it is very much a struggle by means of prayer, and they do it in the silence of their cells. The monks and their activities on the mountain have been kept somewhat secret intentionally. The reason for this is that they believe God does not really care if you can see or hear at the moment of the blessing. Their prayer is to God for the people who are sick, addicted, broken, and lost, those who may be completely unknown to them. This covering up is such a contrast to the modern world that seems to desire nothing else but recognition. The journey of Mel Gibson was one of the very few pilgrims who showed the power that still draws and continues to attract people to the monastic life of the Holy Mountain. Mount Athos does not do anything to attract or to impress. It just invites a very slow and silent transformation of the person. In a fast-paced and noisy world, Mount Athos is still a place of humility and silence. It is a lesson that, although we are not living on a mountain, we still have to make time for silence and God, because true knowledge silently grows in the hidden places of the soul. Mount Athos reminds us that true power lies in silent prayer, radical humility, and faithfulness unseen by the world. Mel Gibson's journey there shows that even fame cannot replace the deep stillness found in God's presence. If this story stirred something in you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone longing for peace amid the noise. Stay with us and let the next video on your screen continue the journey into stillness and faith. Together, let's listen anew and find strength in silence